She did not walk into the shelter to save a life. She walked in because her hands would not stop shaking and the nights were getting longer and louder inside her head. She thought she was past breaking. She was wrong. Because one small puppy, sitting still with wet eyes, was about to open something she had locked away to survive. Let me take you back to where it all began. Hannah Cole stood just inside the shelter door, unsure why she had even come. Her body stiff the way it always got in places where she could not see every corner at once. And although she wore plain clothes now, people still noticed how she stood straight without trying. How her eyes stayed alert even when she looked tired, and how she never rested her back against a wall. She was 31, light-skinned, hair pulled back without care, and she carried herself like someone who had learned to stay ready even when nothing was happening. A counselor on base had told her to try something small and normal, something that did not involve fixing people or holding pressure on wounds, and the shelter had seemed harmless enough at the time, just a place with animals and noise and no expectations. But the noise hit her all at once, not sharp, just heavy, filling the space until her chest felt tight, and she almost turned around right there, except something made her pause, something quiet in a place that should not have been quiet at all. At the end of the hall, past the moving bodies and reaching hands, there was a kennel where nothing moved, no jumping, no pacing, no begging eyes pressed against metal, just a small German shepherd puppy sitting back against the wall like he had been placed there and forgotten. He was too thin, his ears not sure which way they wanted to stand, and his eyes were fixed forward, not on her, not on anyone, just forward. And when Hannah stepped closer, she saw that the fur beneath his eyes was dark and wet, not from dirt, not from sickness, but from tears that had nowhere to go. She felt something twist low in her chest, and she did not like it, because it felt too close to things she had learned not to touch. She asked the nearest worker, trying to keep her voice even, what was wrong with him, and the woman shrugged the way people do when they have already accepted an answer they cannot change, saying they found him tied outside a few days ago, that he barely ate, that he did not respond much, that most people passed him by because he made them uncomfortable, and that sometimes animals just shut down when they learn early that no one is coming. That last part landed harder than Hannah expected, because she knew that place, the place where you stop asking, and before she could think better of it, she crouched down, slow and careful, close enough to be seen but not close enough to threaten, and she rested her gloved hand near the bars without reaching further. The puppy did not move at first, and she told herself she would stand up in a moment, that she would leave like she always did when things got too close. But then the puppy shifted just enough for her to notice, his body tense, his eyes still wide, and after a long pause that made her breath shallow, he lifted one small paw and placed it on her hand, not asking, not pulling, just resting there as if it was the only place it felt safe. Hannah forgot where she was. She forgot the sounds around her. She forgot the rules she lived by. All she felt was the weight of that paw and the quiet way it stayed, and she whispered without thinking, "I see you," and the puppy did not pull away. She left the shelter that day without him because fear still had a voice, but she did not sleep that night, and the next morning she came back, signed the papers while the worker asked if she was sure, explaining again that he might never be normal, that he might always be distant, and Hannah answered softly that he did not need to be anything other than alive. She named him Chance because it felt honest, because that was all she was offering and all she was asking for in return. And the first night in her small apartment he would not eat unless she turned her back, would not lie down unless she sat on the floor nearby, and when she woke shaking from a dream she refused to describe, he was there, pressed close, steady in a way she had not felt in years, and Hannah realized with a mix of fear and relief that whatever she thought she was rescuing, she might not be the only one who needed it, and that was the moment everything quietly began to change. She didn't tell anyone she had adopted a dog. Not her neighbors, not her old unit friends, not even the counselor who had told her to do something ordinary. She wasn't ready for questions. Not the kind that came with tilted heads and soft voices like, "Oh, a dog. That's good. That'll help." She wasn't doing this to be helped. She just didn't want to walk into an empty apartment anymore and hear her own breathing feel louder than it should be. Chance didn't make noise. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He didn't follow her from room to room like some dogs do. He watched. That was all. He would sit near the corner of the kitchen while she made eggs in the morning and just watch. Not staring with need, not begging. Just there, quiet and aware, as if making sure she didn't disappear. On the third night, he slept curled in the hallway between her bedroom and the front door. She had stepped over him in the dark without even realizing he was there until her foot brushed his ear, and he lifted his head but didn't move. Just blinked at her once and settled back down. She whispered sorry, but he had already closed his eyes. The fourth night, she had the dream again, the one she didn't talk about. It was always the same. Dust in the air, the taste of copper, someone shouting her name from too far away, and that same feeling like she was trying to move underwater but her legs wouldn't work. She woke up soaked in sweat, heart pounding, eyes open but not seeing, and she didn't realize she was crying until she felt something press gently against her side. Chance. Not touching her with force, not climbing into her lap, just there, body close, head resting against her ribs. She didn't say anything. She didn't pet him. She just sat there on the edge of her bed, shaking, while he breathed slow and steady beside her like the rhythm she had forgotten. In the morning, she found him curled at the foot of her bed, paws tucked neatly under his chest like he had always belonged there. It was only then that she noticed his ribs. How sharp they still looked. How deep the fur was worn around his neck from whatever rope had been used to tie him up. She made him scrambled eggs that morning instead of dry kibble, and he didn't eat them until she stepped outside and waited. But he ate. That was enough. Days passed. She didn't talk much and neither did he, but there was something new about the silence now. It wasn't empty. It had shape. Sometimes she would catch herself humming softly while washing dishes, and when she turned, he would be sitting in the doorway, not looking directly at her, but near, watching. On a Thursday, she remembered because the calendar on her fridge still had military drill notes scratched in from months ago. She took him to the vet. It was supposed to be routine. Just checkups, shots, maybe weigh him and see if he needed supplements. The vet was kind. An older man with a soft voice and a firm grip. The kind that reminded her of command sergeants who never had to raise their voice to be obeyed. He scanned Chance's chip and frowned. Hannah stood up straighter without meaning to. "Is there a problem?" she asked. The vet glanced at the screen, then back at her. "You didn't name him Echo?" "No. His name's Chance." "Well, according to this, his name was Echo. That's what's on the microchip. Do you mind if I check something?" She nodded, her stomach already tightening like it used to before a mission. The vet disappeared into the back. 10 minutes passed. When he returned, he was holding a manila folder and wearing a face that didn't match the simplicity of a dog checkup. "This dog," he said, laying the file on the table, "wasn't supposed to end up in a shelter." Hannah blinked. "What do you mean?" "He was bred for contract work. K9 security. This chip links to a firm that shut down last year. Private military contractor. They train dogs for patrol and protection. Echo here was listed as one of theirs. No adoption records. No retirement papers. Nothing. So how did he end up tied to a fence?" "That's what I don't know," the vet said, his voice lower. "But I can tell you one thing. He's not a regular dog." Hannah looked down at Chance. He was lying on the floor, calm, eyes steady, ears halfway up like he always wore them. She thought of the way he never slept facing the wall, the way he positioned himself between her and the door without being told, the way he moved at night, slow and careful, checking the windows. She thought of the way he had pressed into her ribs when she couldn't breathe. "He's trained," she said quietly. "Someone trained him to notice, to protect." The vet nodded. "And someone gave up on him." She ran her hand along Chance's back, her fingers tracing the line of muscle beneath fur that still felt too thin. "Not anymore," she said. He didn't react, but she didn't expect him to. She didn't need him to. She just needed him to stay. A few days later, her neighbor invited her to a cookout. It was for the local VFW chapter, a mix of veterans and family, something casual in a backyard with folding chairs and overcooked burgers. She didn't want to go, but something told her to take Chance somewhere outside of their four walls. The yard was full of kids and voices and smells that made her chest feel tight for reasons she couldn't name. Chance stayed close to her heel, eyes scanning without moving his head, the way she had seen military working dogs do back in country. Most people didn't notice him. One man asked if he was friendly. She just nodded. "He's quiet." The music started. Someone brought out sparklers for the kids. It was all fine until it wasn't. A sharp cry broke through the noise. A boy, maybe 6, had collapsed near the edge of the yard. Limbs stiff, face pale. People froze. Parents shouted. Hannah dropped her drink. But Chance was already moving. He ran full speed, past the chairs and the shouting, and without barking or panic, he reached the boy and gently lowered his head under the child's arm to stop it from hitting the ground again. Then he curled around the small body, just enough to shield him from the heat and the light and the chaos. Hannah stood frozen. Everyone did. A woman cried. The child's mother reached him moments later, tears falling, hands shaking. And Chance didn't move until the boy opened his eyes. The paramedics arrived soon after. The boy would be okay. It was a seizure, sudden and unexplained, but not life-threatening. The guests called it a miracle. Hannah knew better. Chance had done this before, just not for her. That night, when they got home, she sat on the floor beside him and ran her fingers through the soft fur behind his ear. "They said you were a failure," she whispered. "They said you weren't ready." He blinked at her, then leaned his head into her palm for the first time. She smiled, barely. Maybe we both needed a second chance. In the morning, her phone buzzed. A message from the shelter. A photo from the cookout had gone viral. A trainer wanted to talk. They had seen dogs like him before, but not quite like him. The message ended with a question. "Are you open to a formal evaluation?" She looked at Chance. He was already sitting near the door, watching her. Waiting. She whispered, "Yeah, let's see where this goes." She didn't tell anyone about the message. Not yet. Not until she could figure out what it meant. She had only just started to believe that Chance was hers. That he was staying. That he wasn't going to vanish like most of the people she had trusted before. A test, a trainer, some kind of program evaluation. It all sounded too official. Too close to someone taking him away again. And Hannah didn't know if she could survive that. So she waited. Days passed. They slipped into a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than before. She talked a little more. Not full conversations, but small things like reading out loud from the back of the cereal box or telling him when she'd be back. He never reacted much, just listened. That was enough. Sometimes he followed her to the bathroom. Not in an annoying way, just sat outside the door like a silent guard. She never told him to do it. He just did. She hadn't felt that kind of presence in years. The kind that made her feel like someone else had her back, like she could blink without checking the window first. Then, one morning, a letter came. Not an email. A real letter. Stamped. Signed. It was from a man named Bill Kessler. The name didn't mean anything to her at first. But the letter did. It said he had worked with dogs for military contractors for over 2 decades. He had trained dogs like Echo. The letter was short, direct. He had seen the video. He recognized the posture, the reaction, the restraint. "That's Echo," it read. "He wasn't a reject. He was one of the best we had. I should know, I trained him." She read it twice, 3 times. She folded it slowly and sat with it in her hands for a long time. She knew she should feel something. Pride, relief, anger. But all she felt was the weight of knowing Echo wasn't just some forgotten stray. He had been trained, shaped, then discarded, just like her. That night, she didn't say anything. She just sat next to him on the floor, her shoulder against his side. He didn't move. He just stayed. 2 days later, her phone rang again. A woman this time. Her voice was calm, professional, but kind. "Ms. Cole, we'd like to meet Echo. If you're open to it. We think he could be an excellent fit for our PTSD service dog program. You wouldn't have to give him up. You'd be his handler, his partner." Hannah didn't answer right away. She looked at Chance, who was lying near the window like always, watching the street without making a sound. "All right," she said finally. "We'll come by." The center was quiet, clean, no barking, no loud sounds, just wide rooms, open space, and a strange kind of peace she hadn't expected. They were greeted by a man named Jason, former Air Force, maybe late 40s, with the kind of quiet tone that didn't ask for attention but earned it anyway. "That's him," Jason asked, looking at Chance. Hannah nodded. Chance sat calmly beside her, his body still, ears half raised. Jason kneeled slowly, just a few feet away. Didn't reach out. Didn't speak. Just waited. Chance didn't move either. But after a moment, he stood, walked over, and sat beside Jason, eyes forward, posture alert. Jason smiled. Still remembers his training. That's rare. He looked up at Hannah. How long have you had him? A little over a month. And he does this? Every day. He checks the windows at night. Walks behind me, not in front. Doesn't sleep unless I'm in bed first. Jason nodded. We can do a full evaluation today, if you're comfortable. Hannah hesitated. I don't want to break what we've got. We're not here to break anything, he said. Just help you both figure out what's already there. The assessment was quiet, gentle. They didn't shout commands or pull him around. They gave him small tasks, responses, scent recognition, reader recs. He passed every one. Hannah watched in silence, her hands clenched lightly at her sides. When it was over, Jason handed her a file. His history's in there, he said. We had to dig a bit. Some of it was sealed when his original unit folded. He wasn't dropped for failure. His handler died in the field. After that, he shut down. Wouldn't work with anyone else. Hannah looked at the folder, but she didn't open it. Why me? Jason smiled, but it was sad. Maybe he saw something in you. Maybe you did too. She swallowed hard. So what now? Now, Jason said. You go home. Keep doing what you've been doing. And if you want, we'll certify you both together. Official PTSD support team. You'd still be his person. Nothing changes, except he gets the badge he always deserved. She nodded, but her throat was too tight to speak. They left quietly. In the car, Chance rested his head on her knee the whole drive home. She didn't cry, but her hand stayed in his fur the whole way back. That night, she sat on the porch with him, looking up at nothing. They gave up on you because you didn't bounce back fast enough, she said. They didn't even ask what you lost. Chance turned his head slightly. Not dramatic, just listening. They did that to me too, she added. Acted like I was fine because I didn't bleed. She laughed once, soft and bitter. Maybe that's why we get it. Chance leaned into her leg, solid and warm. She didn't speak again. She didn't have to. Inside the house, the porch light flickered and went out. Neither of them moved, because this was the first time in years she had felt it. Not safety, not calm, just something close to peace. They had found each other after being thrown away, and together they were starting to remember what it felt like to be whole. The next morning, a package arrived. A simple brown envelope. No return address. Inside was a patch, the kind stitched onto working dog vests. Said one word, Echo. Underneath it, a card. He was never lost. He was waiting. She didn't cry when she read it, but she pressed the patch to her chest and whispered, I know. She didn't hang the patch on the wall. She didn't frame it or place it next to the medals in the drawer she hadn't opened in years. Instead, she sewed it by hand, slowly, carefully, onto the harness she bought him that afternoon. It wasn't fancy, just black canvas, clean, quiet, like him. When she slipped it over his head, he stood still, calm as ever, and waited like he had worn it before. And maybe he had. She tightened the strap under his belly and clipped the front, fingers pausing only once when they brushed the soft scar near his collarbone. He didn't flinch. She whispered, You ready? And though he didn't move, she knew the answer. That weekend, they went back to the center. Not for testing this time, for training, but the kind that didn't feel like drills or commands. It was quieter, built on trust. Tasks were introduced slowly: pressure therapy, alert stance, door blocking, deep touch on command. Chance didn't just learn. He remembered. Jason watched from across the room and nodded more than he spoke. After the third session, he pulled Hannah aside. He's not just good. He's built for this, but it only works because of you. What do you mean? She asked. He chose you, Jason said. Some dogs don't bond again. Not after a trauma that deep. But he did. That's rare. Hannah looked across the room where Chance sat, his body alert, watching the exit but still aware of her every move. I didn't think I'd bond again either, she said. Jason didn't respond. He didn't need to. A few weeks later, the certification came through. Not just for Chance, but for both of them. They were now an official PTSD support team. A photo was taken, just the two of them standing in front of the flag outside the center. Hannah didn't smile in it, but she didn't look away from the camera either. That was enough. At home, things started to shift. Not big things, just small adjustments that added up. She stopped triple-checking the locks every night. She started leaving the blinds cracked, not wide open, but enough to let a little light in. She started cooking more than scrambled eggs. Chance always sat nearby but never begged, never barked. He just stayed close. One night, after a long session with other veterans at the center, a young Marine named Avery approached her while they were putting their coats on. "Your dog," he said, pausing. "He saved that kid, right? At the cookout." Hannah nodded. "Yeah." Avery looked down at Chance, who was lying near the door, watching. "I've been thinking about getting one. I keep having this dream, like I'm running towards something, but I never get there." She didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, "Get a dog that doesn't need you to be okay. Just one that stays when it's not." Avery looked at her, eyes red. "That's what you got?" She looked at Chance. "Yeah," she said. "That's what I got." After that, people started noticing her more. Not in the way she used to hate, pitying looks or stiff thanks for service. This time it was different. They'd ask about Chance, about how she trained him, about what it felt like to have someone always there, even when words failed. But Hannah didn't always have answers. Not because she didn't want to share, but because some things can't be put into steps. Some things are felt, not taught. Like the way Chance would wake her up softly when her breathing got rough in sleep. Or how he would stand just close enough behind her in crowded places so she wouldn't feel alone. Or the way he pressed his head into her chest without command the day she found out a soldier from her last unit had taken his own life. No barking, no noise, just presence. Always presence. One afternoon, she took him to the farmer's market on Main. They'd never been before. Too many people, too many moving pieces. But she wanted to try. He wore his vest. The patch said service dog. Do not pet. Still, people smiled. Kids waved. And Hannah walked with her head up. Not high, not proud, just not hidden. They passed a small booth with handmade dog treats. The woman behind the table beamed. He's beautiful. What's his name? Chance, she replied. The woman bent slightly. Can he have peanut butter? Hannah paused. Chance looked at her. Yeah, she said finally. He can. The woman handed her a small bone-shaped cookie. Hannah crouched, holding it out. Chance looked at it, then at her, and gently took it from her palm without rushing. The woman smiled. He trusts you. Hannah nodded. I trust him too. Later that night, she sat on her bed with a cup of tea she didn't used to drink. Chance was at her feet, resting. She picked up her phone and finally texted the counselor who had first told her to try something small. You were right. I walked into a shelter. I didn't mean to. I wasn't looking for anything. But I found someone who had stopped looking too. And now, we're both still here. She pressed send. Then she leaned back and let the silence wrap around her. No longer hollow. Just quiet. Just safe. The next day brought something unexpected. A reporter. Local paper. They had seen the video from the cookout and wanted to do a story. She said no at first. Then she looked at Chance and said yes. The interview was short. The photo even shorter. Just her hand resting on his head. No uniform. No medals. Just them. The headline read, A Second Chance. Veteran and shelter dog find purpose in each other. She didn't read the comments. But Jason did. He sent her a screenshot of one. It said, This story made me get out of bed today. That night, she stood at the door before bed. Something she hadn't done in weeks, and looked out into the street. Chance sat beside her. She whispered, You were never a failure. He blinked. She added, "Neither was I." And for the second time since they met, he wagged his tail. Not fast, not loud, just once. But she felt it. And that was everything. Hannah didn't think about what came next. Not in the way she used to, planning everything 3 steps ahead, watching every angle. Something had shifted. Her days had more shape now. Not busy, not full, but steady. And sometimes that was more than enough. She started volunteering at the center on weekends. Not as a trainer, she didn't feel qualified for that, but just as a presence. Someone who understood how hard it was to speak sometimes, and how much it mattered to be heard anyway. She'd sit in the corner with Chance beside her while other veterans walked in with stiff shoulders and hollow eyes. And they'd see him first. Not her. Him. That helped. One man, older, maybe late 60s, paused in the doorway one Saturday and whispered, "I had one just like him, back in Nam. Only thing that got me home." Hannah didn't say anything. She just nodded once. The man sat down, said nothing more, but he came back the next week. Then the one after that. That was how healing worked, she thought. Not loud, not fast, just quietly. Chance didn't need praise. He didn't need toys or treats or new routines. He just needed to be close. That was how he loved. And in his own way, it was louder than anything else. But not everyone understood that. A neighbor complained once, said she never heard him bark, and it made her nervous. "A dog that quiet?" the woman muttered. "Doesn't seem normal." Hannah didn't argue. She just smiled politely and closed the door. Later that night, she told Chance about it while folding laundry. "Apparently you're not normal," she said. He stared at her, unmoved. She chuckled. "Yeah, me neither." A few days later, she got another call. This time from someone higher up in the Veterans Outreach Program. They had heard about her, about Chance, about the way they worked together. "Would you be willing to speak at the fundraiser?" the woman asked. "We think people would really respond to your story." Hannah went quiet. The woman waited. "Just tell them the truth," she added gently. "You don't have to perform. Just speak." Hannah agreed, not because she wanted to, but because someone had to say it. The event was held in a small hall near the city courthouse. Nothing big. Fold-out chairs. A podium. A flag at the back. She wore jeans and a clean shirt. No uniform. No ribbons. Just herself. Chance sat at her side, vest on, tail still. When she walked up to speak, he walked with her. No leash. No hesitation. Just presence. The room went quiet. Hannah took a deep breath. Then she began. "I used to think silence meant I was safe," she said. "If no one heard me, I wouldn't have to explain. I wouldn't have to be weak. But silence can get heavy. And after a while, you start to believe it's the only thing you deserve." She paused. The room held still. "Then I met a dog who didn't make a sound, who didn't beg to be noticed. He just waited. And when I was finally quiet enough to listen, I realized he hadn't given up. He was just waiting for someone to stay." A few people in the front row wiped their eyes. She didn't look away. They said he might never be normal, that he might never be a real dog again. But he didn't need to be anything other than mine. And I didn't need to be anything other than someone willing to try. She reached down, hand resting on Chance's head. "We don't need fixing. We need someone who sees us where we are and stays anyway." The room rose to their feet when she stepped down. Not a loud standing ovation. Just slow, real, honest. The kind that didn't come from pity or politeness. The kind that came from people who had also waited in silence. After the event, a woman came up to her. Late 40s. Blonde hair. Nervous hands. "I have a son," she said softly. "He came back from Afghanistan last year. Won't talk to anyone. Barely leaves the house." Hannah didn't say anything. Just listened. "Do you think, would a dog help?" Hannah looked at her. "It depends." "On what?" "On whether the dog's willing to wait as long as he needs." The woman swallowed. "I think he'd wait forever." Hannah nodded. "Then maybe it's time." That night, she and Chance walked home instead of driving. It was cool out. The city was quieter than usual. Chance walked at her left side, his body matching her stride perfectly. No tension, no leash needed, just trust. At a corner, a teenager passed them, hood up, face unreadable. He moved fast, brushing too close. Hannah tensed. Her pulse jumped. Chance didn't growl. He didn't lunge. He simply shifted half a step to the side, placing his body between hers and the boy, eyes forward. Protective. Calm. And it was enough. The boy walked on. Hannah's heart slowed. "You always know, don't you?" she murmured. Chance didn't answer, but he stayed close the whole way home. As they climbed the stairs to her apartment, she paused halfway. "You weren't just waiting for someone," she whispered. "You were waiting for me." And for the first time, she felt what the counselor had meant. The healing wasn't about moving on. It was about having something that made staying worth it. They stepped inside. She locked the door once, not 3 times. She turned off the lights and let the dark come in without fear. Chance lay down beside the bed, not in front of the door this time. And she slept, really slept. No dreams, no waking, just breath, just peace. The kind of peace that doesn't have to be earned, just shared. A few days later, she took Chance out of town for the first time. Not far, just a 2-hour drive to a lake she remembered from before the deployments. It had been a place she used to go with her brother before everything changed. Back when laughter still came easy. She hadn't been there since the funeral. The drive was quiet. No music. Just the road and the occasional sound of Chance's breathing from the back seat. When they arrived, she sat in the car for a while before opening the door. The lake looked the same. Calm. Still. Like it hadn't noticed time had passed. Chance waited for her to move. She opened the door, stepped out, and walked toward the old wooden bench near the shore. He followed without a sound. She sat. He sat beside her. For a long while, she didn't say anything. Just watched the water. The way it moved, barely, like it was breathing. Then, almost without meaning to, she spoke. "I brought his ashes here." Chance didn't move. "I was the one who signed the release papers. I flew home and didn't cry. Just got off the plane and walked straight to the base housing like nothing happened." The words didn't come with tears. Just wait. "They said he wasn't supposed to be on that road. That it was a wrong turn. But I know better. He was following me." Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her jacket. "I begged him not to enlist. He said, 'If you're going, I'm going.' And he did." A breeze passed. Chance shifted slightly, resting his head on her knee. "He died in a blast meant for someone else," she whispered. "And they gave me a folded flag." She didn't say more. She couldn't. But she stayed there, letting the silence carry what her voice couldn't. After a while, she stood, walked slowly to the edge of the water. Chance followed her, then stopped a few feet behind. She took off her shoes, let the cold water touch her feet. Felt like something real, something honest. She looked back at Chance and said, "He would have liked you." Chance blinked, then sat down. She smiled softly. "Yeah, he would have loved you." They stayed another hour before heading back. No photos, no souvenirs. Just a piece of her past finally released into something bigger than her grief. That night, she slept without waking once. It was the first time in almost 6 years. In the following weeks, people started calling more. Not friends, not family, but other veterans. People she hadn't met. Names she didn't recognize. They had heard about her, about Chance, about the way she spoke at the event. They weren't looking for advice, just someone who might understand. Sometimes she listened for an hour, sometimes only for 5 minutes. But she never rushed them. She never told them to get over it or move on. She just let them be where they were. And always, when she talked to them, Chance lay nearby, head on his paws, calm and steady. He never barked. He didn't need to. He was already doing what he had been born to do. One evening, she received a letter, handwritten. The return address was from a facility in another state, a veterans rehab center. The letter was from a young man named Travis. He had seen the article, watched the clip of her talk, and he wrote, I thought I was too broken to try again. But after I saw your story, I walked into our shelter here. There was one dog left. She didn't make a sound, but she didn't look away either. I took her home. I named her Grace. And we're still here." Hannah read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the drawer with the patch. The one that said Echo. Some things you hold on to not because you need reminders, but because they're part of how you keep going. Like muscle memory, like breath. That weekend, she took Chance to a school. The center had partnered with a local elementary for a quiet event where kids could read aloud to service dogs. Some of the children were shy. Some had trouble speaking in front of others. But something about the dogs made them try. One little girl sat in front of Chance with a book too big for her hands. She read slowly, stumbling through the words. But she didn't stop. Chance lay still the entire time, eyes open, tail gently moving when she laughed at the story. After she finished, she looked at Hannah and whispered, "He listens better than my teacher." Hannah smiled. "He's very good at that." The girl reached out, touched Chance's head. He didn't flinch. She leaned in and whispered something into his ear. Hannah didn't hear it, but whatever it was, it mattered. The girl turned back and waved goodbye before running off. That night, as Hannah fed Chance dinner, she thought about all the people he had helped without even trying. People he'd never barked at, never jumped on, never chased. He just sat and stayed. And somehow that was enough to heal what nothing else had touched. She crouched beside him, her fingers brushing the edge of his vest. "You were never just a dog," she whispered. "You were waiting for someone to let you be who you already were." He looked at her, calm as ever. And for a moment, she felt like the world had stopped spinning long enough for her to breathe without fear. That was all she had wanted. Just a place to breathe. Just a reason to keep going. And she had found it. In the eyes of a dog no one else wanted. In the silence they shared. In the life they rebuilt. One step, one breath, one day at a time. It happened quietly, like most things that truly matter. A week after the school event, Hannah got another letter, this time delivered by hand. A woman from the center handed it to her after a support group, saying, "It's from the handler who trained him. He saw the video." Hannah took it, sat with it in her lap for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was sharp, neat, steady. "I was Echo's first handler," it began. "He was assigned to me straight from the program. Smartest dog I ever worked with. Loyal, fast, calm under pressure. He passed every test. But he wouldn't work with anyone after I left. I was wounded in a mission overseas and discharged. I tried to get him reassigned, but the contract company shut down, and I lost track of him. I thought they put him down. I blamed myself." Hannah's hand trembled slightly as she read. "Then I saw the footage, the cookout, the speech, the work you're doing. Couldn't believe it. He looks older, a little slower, but it's him. That's Echo. He made it." The letter ended with, "Thank you for saving my partner, and thank you for letting him save you." Underneath the words was a phone number. No pressure, just an open door. Hannah stared at the letter, then looked at Chance, who was asleep near the couch, his chest rising slowly, his ears twitching in response to nothing. He hadn't just survived. He hadn't just healed. He had come full circle. But there was one more piece left. One more step. She picked up her phone, dialed the number. It rang twice. Then a voice picked up. Male. Quiet. Strong. "This is Tyler." Hannah cleared her throat. I think I have your dog." There was silence. Then the man breathed in. "Is he okay?" "He's more than okay," Hannah said. "He's everything." There was a long pause. "Can I meet him?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at Chance. He was awake now, eyes on her as if he knew. She nodded, even though the man couldn't see her. "Yeah," she said. "I think he'd like that." And with that, the story shifted again. Because sometimes healing means facing what you thought you'd lost forever. And sometimes it means choosing to open the door and see who's still standing on the other side. Hannah didn't tell anyone she was nervous. Not the people at the center. Not the counselor. not even herself. But her hands kept moving that morning, folding the same towel twice, refilling Chance's water bowl even though it was already full. She wasn't scared. Not exactly. She just hadn't let anyone from her past or his walk back in before. This was different, and she knew it. She had agreed to meet Tyler at the center. Neutral ground. Quiet place. Familiar for both of them. Not too personal. Not too public. She had chosen the date and time. She could have changed it, but she didn't. Chance had been calm all morning, like he already knew what was coming, like some part of him remembered. When she clipped his vest on, his body relaxed like it always did. This wasn't just his gear. It was his uniform, a signal, a role he understood. They drove in silence. She didn't need music. She needed breath. She needed the soft sound of his paws shifting on the mat in the back seat. When they pulled into the lot, her stomach tightened, but she didn't hesitate, just parked, got out, walked around to open his door. Chance stepped down slowly, looked around once, then waited. She crouched beside him. "You ready for this?" He didn't wag, didn't blink, just leaned slightly into her side. It was enough. They walked in together. Jason met them at the door. "He's already here," he said. "You sure you want to do this?" Hannah nodded. He was his partner. He deserves to know. Jason stepped aside. "He's in room 2. Take your time." Hannah led Chance down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the one before it. Not because of fear, but because some moments carry more than just weight, they carry meaning. She reached the door, paused, looked down at Chance. "Let's go." She opened the door. Tyler stood near the window, mid-30s, tall, solid frame. His left arm moved stiffly, old injury, probably permanent. But his posture was straight. His eyes were locked on Chance. Chance stopped in the doorway. His body went still. Then slowly he walked forward. Tyler didn't speak. He crouched halfway, just enough to be eye level. Chance stopped in front of him. 1 beat, 2. Then he lifted his paw and placed it gently on Tyler's knee. Tyler swallowed hard. "Hey, partner." Chance didn't move, but his eyes were locked on Tyler's. Hannah stood back, her throat tight. Tyler reached out, resting his hand gently on Chance's head. "They told me you were gone," he whispered. "They said you wouldn't take to anyone else." His fingers trembled. "But you did." Hannah stepped closer. "He didn't for a while. It took time." Tyler nodded. It always did with him. They sat in that room for almost an hour, not talking much, just being. Tyler shared stories, missions they had run, how Echo had once found a wounded soldier buried under rubble by scent alone, how he had dragged his own handler back behind cover after a firefight. "He saved my life," Tyler said, "more than once." Hannah listened, absorbing it all like puzzle pieces she hadn't known were missing. And through it all, Chance sat between them, calm, steady, ears shifting gently every time their voices broke. When it was time to leave, Tyler stood. "I don't want to confuse him," he said. "I won't ask for anything. I just thank you for not giving up on him." Hannah nodded. "He saved me too." Tyler held out a hand. She took it. "Take care of each other," he said. "Always." "We will." When they got home that night, Chance was quiet. He moved a little slower. Not tired, just thoughtful, if dogs could be that. She didn't speak much either. Just sat on the couch, fingers tracing the edge of his vest. After a while, she leaned down, pressed her forehead to his. "You did good today." He closed his eyes. They didn't go anywhere the next day, or the day after that. She gave him space, let him process, gave herself time too. Not every part of healing needed to be seen. Some of it was in the quiet. Some of it was in the staying. That weekend, Jason called. "You busy?" She glanced at Chance. "No. We've got 3 new veterans starting this week. One of them hasn't spoken in a year. Another's sleeping in his car. We're low on staff. Thought maybe you and Chance could just be around." She didn't ask questions. Just said, "We'll be there." And they were. In the corner again. just present. Not performing, not saving, just sitting. And that was enough. One of the new guys sat on the opposite wall. Didn't talk, didn't look up. But after 20 minutes, he shifted slightly so he could see Chance better. By the end of the session, he was sitting a few feet closer. No words, no need. Afterward, Jason pulled her aside. You keep showing up like this, we're gonna have to give you a job. Hannah shrugged. We're just staying. Jason smiled. Exactly. She and Chance kept going back, kept showing up, quietly, steadily, just like they always had. And one day, in a letter from a young woman states away, she read the words that brought her to tears. I stopped planning my end because I saw your story. I adopted a dog that couldn't bark. We sit together in silence. But it's the first time I've felt heard in years. That was when Hannah knew. This wasn't just about her anymore, or about Chance. It was about everyone who thought they were too broken to be loved. Everyone who had been told they were too quiet, too slow, too far gone. And everyone who needed to be reminded that sometimes, staying is the bravest thing you can do. In the final weeks of that summer, Hannah and Chance were featured in a national story. Not because of their past, but because of what they were building. A network, a space, a program focused not on fixing, but on waiting, listening, trusting. At the center of it all, one dog who had been forgotten, and one woman who had stopped trying to be saved. They had chosen each other, and together they had saved themselves. On a quiet evening in late August, Hannah stood at the back porch, Chance lying at her feet. She watched the sun go down without checking the locks. Her phone buzzed. Another message from a stranger. Another thank you. She didn't answer right away. She just looked down at Chance and whispered, "We did good." He looked up, wagged his tail once, and that was enough. Thank you to my amazing family for staying with me until the end of this story. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed this journey, I just know you'll love what comes next. I've prepared something even more exciting and surprising that I can't wait to share with you. Just click on the end card appearing on your screen right now to watch the next one.